Embrace the world around you and develop a love for yourself with Simple Soul creating you. Amy Holst and Tasha Fritz cut through this crazy life with humorous personal stories, research, and practical tips in an effort to simplify life and help empower you to become connected to your real thoughts and feelings. Love your Simple Soul.
Welcome back. Are you insecure?
I think I have nothing like getting right to it. Man, gosh, I think we all have insecurities. I have insecurities.
Okay, so tell us about your insecurities.
Oh my gosh, like right now.
Yeah, jump right in.
Well, I think one of my biggest insecurities is looking stupid. So thank you for like not having an answer, not being quick enough to come up with an answer in a social setting.
Okay.
Or not quick enough with my joke comebacks in a social setting. I think I have some insecurities there. Gosh, what are yours?
So probably, I'm sure I have many insecurities, but one that when we're just talking about almost makes me feel like up to here is my cooking. So for those of you who are my friends and listening.
It should. No, I'm kidding.
You know my cooking. It's bad. I mean, like the last apple pie that was made, I used cayenne pepper instead of cinnamon. So I struggle a little bit with any gathering. Not so much for my family because they just know I suck at cooking.
They don't eat Amy's food.
I made Rice Krispies last week, and I busted out laughing, and Steve said, "What's so funny?" And I said, "They don't look right." And he goes, "Did you remember the marshmallows?" Yes. Did you remember the butter? Yes. Did you remember the Rice Krispies? Yes. Well, then you got all the ingredients, and that's typically my problem. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, actually, I didn't do the right ratio, and so I used more Rice Krispies than it called for. So when you take a bite, the Rice Krispies fell out, it didn't work, right?
Funny.
So, but this is the story of my life. Is my cooking probably is my number one insecurity. Mm-hmm. Like a potluck, no problem if I have time to go to the store because I won't bring home goods, but I'm nervous to cook for other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can overcome that, I mean, a little bit, right?
As a matter of fact, a symptom, like right now, I'm shaking my leg, right? I'm like kicking and
nervous about
I'm getting nervous even talking about this conversation because my cooking is so poor.
Yeah, which is probably why I get so nervous just before we hit record on the podcast. I mean, we hit record and we look at each other for a few seconds, and I mean like 30 seconds, somewhere up to 2 minutes, because I'm not sure I'm ready to start, or I get a little anxious about starting and having other people hear what's going on in our world. But insecurities are human. We all have insecurities. And the thing I think that I land on the most and that I continue to read over and over and over again is that it's a right to have insecurities.
Absolutely.
But to not let those insecurities define you.
Yeah.
To not have those insecurities hold you back from other really cool things that you could experience if you were able to overcome them.
And, you know, one of the things that I want to talk about with insecurities, too, later, so remind me, is really when and what's worth being insecure about. Like, what can you kind of work on to get better versus what can you never change, and you just got to let it go.
Right.
So
we can kind of talk about that the whole way through. The first thing that comes up when we talk about what are women insecure about. And so maybe you'll relate to some of these and maybe you'll laugh at some of these. But one of them that comes up constantly is looks. How we look, how we dress, if we have acne or cellulite or stretch marks or what do they call these right here?
Crow's
feet or whatever, right? White teeth versus stained, like the whole gamut of how we look.
Yeah. I think women tend to fixate more on this, and quite honestly, I think women to women are a lot harder about this than men. So that what we've read, different things, is that, you know, you could have a blemish or a pimple or whatever, and another female may notice it. You for sure notice it about yourself, but a man probably doesn't. And the amount of cellulite you have, you feel like you put on your bathing suit and it's sticking out for everybody to see. Oftentimes, I mean, we've talked about this in the past, men don't notice those kind of things because to them, a woman's body is different than what it is from a female to a female.
Right. And I see a woman at the beach or at the pool in a swimsuit that's showing stretch marks, let's say. I think, what a warrior. That's awesome. Look at her. Yet I still can't walk out the door myself. Even though I like really do truly believe that about the women that I see.
Well, and it goes both ways, too, because there's part of me that's like, hooray that they're comfortable in their own skin. That they can wear a swimsuit, maybe when it isn't some of the articles referred to the Victoria's Secret model or the Dove model, you know. But yeah, so for sure, I think looks I think what I was alluding to earlier, though, is like my gray hair, right?
Right.
So I have a hair appointment on Wednesday night, and I can continually worry about that because I can get it fixed, right? But like my age, for example, I can't change my age.
Right.
So I am not even going to waste emotional energy around my age because that's something that will never change.
Yeah, it's just a number. And again, not to let that define you.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
I would agree.
One of the other things that comes up often, and we kind of talked about what this word really means, but the word is desirability. And that women have these insecurities about being desirable by their significant others or their partners in their world. And that I was reading a few articles that referred to if you're not comfortable going all 50 Shades of Grey, it's okay. Like, it's all right. Your significant other doesn't necessarily want that either, unless you both do, and then of course go all 50 Shades of Grey. But that's not what the other person is really looking for. They're really looking for this level of vulnerability and emotional connection.
Well, and I think desirability is different depending upon, I mean, even if you're married, good marriage, bad marriage, secure marriage, insecure marriage, maybe there's a more desirability wanted if you're not the one who's secure in the relationship. But I think for dating, I think that's even heightened more because when I dated, I think being desirable to somebody that you're attracted to is more important than maybe when you're married. I think the level is different. I still think you don't want to walk around not brushing your teeth for days on end, right?
Depends
but I
what
do
they desire.
think
I mean, really.
depends upon how desirable you want to be.
Exactly.
But I think there's still a bit of it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's talk about that sense of belonging.
Well, yeah, we talked about desirability with your significant other, but what about this sense of belonging, this desire to be around your friends, or to have your friends desire to be around you?
Right.
You know, what do you bring to the table in your group of friends that they want to continue inviting you back? I think that is a huge insecurity of mine. I have the greatest group of friends. If they're listening, they're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have really cool things about them that I want to be around. And I always think to myself, well, sometimes I think to myself, why do they keep inviting me back? Like, they have really fun senses of humor, and they're just really cool fashions. They have really cool fashion styles, and I can't figure it out. I'm sure they're probably
they'd have a million things to say.
Maybe.
I mean,
but what is it that I bring to the table?
Yeah.
Or what is it that you bring to the table as a friend so that you're desirable to hang out with?
Well, and I think it even goes sometimes when I role model with my kids and we play at home role modeling when they have a friendship issue, and I'm like, well, were you a nice friend?
Right.
Were you a friend that somebody would want to include at recess? And I think as an adult, we have to pretend and we have to do some self-reflection too and ask ourselves that same question. Am I a nice friend? Am I a good quality friend? Am I desirable to hang out with? Right? Because I want to fit in. And I think that goes to the next part of an article that we were reading, which we'll give a shout out to a friend of ours in town, Jamie Reimer, had posted an article on social media, and I tagged Tasha right away, but she happened to be reading it too. And the article was really wonderful. And it talked about why didn't I get invited, basically. Do you want to expand on that
Well,
at all?
I just think, why didn't I get invited? And then just this constant wonder of why I don't fit in, and how when we're growing up, 10, 11, 12, preteen, young ladies and even gentlemen, how we're constantly trying to fit in or be cool or figure out what it is that we stand for and how we fit in. But that now in this point in our life, I'm not that, I don't have to be that insecure person anymore. I'm comfortable who I am. And when I see other people out and about, I still pause and think, gosh, I wonder why I didn't get invited. But I don't lose sleep over that.
And I think the one that sometimes I feel like is when I've extended the invite to people and they've done stuff in a group, but they don't extend it back ever.
Right.
Like, then I feel like, why should I keep working harder at the relationship than somebody else is working on the other side of it? And the other thing is, I hope for most people, as you age, you become exactly what you said, more secure. So I think about me in my, my 20s, my 30s, and my 40s, and now I can honestly say that, am I sad if I'm not included? Yeah, of course I'm sad, right? Because I'd have another problem. I'd have some psychopathic problem if I wasn't sad, if I wasn't included. But I think there comes a point, too, where it is what it is. Not everybody can show up for the birthday party all the time.
Right.
You can't always be included. So
part of this desirability as a friend, too. I think about when I am invited, if I constantly say no or I'm not
Yes.
available,
Yep.
that at some point they're going to stop inviting me, not maybe because they don't want me there, but because I've given them this impression that I don't want to be there.
Right.
Because I haven't taken the time to make them a priority. So I think it goes both ways.
I agree.
Too.
Yeah.
You know, I say that to my husband an awful lot, and I'm a homebody, and I like to be at home, but there are times that I'm like, we need to go because they're important to us. And I might be in my sweatpants, and I might have my bra off, and that usually means I'm staying home, but we might need to get dressed back up and go out just so that we can show those people they are important
And half
to
the
us.
time, that is when it's the most
Oh
fun.
my gosh, it's the best.
So you mentioned your bra.
Oh
So
gosh,
let's
yeah.
go there. So the girls, right? This is
Oh.
an insecurity.
It is.
Big time. When you read up on it, this is one of the insecurities that a lot of women have.
And I think as little girls, this is something that media has portrayed. There's a B.
Sorry.
That media has kind of put in our minds that we all need to have a fuller chest and thinner bodies and whatever it is. So those women who aren't fuller in the chest or are flat-chested are possibly insecure. I don't know. I've never been one of them. But I'm here to tell you that those of us with larger chests are just as insecure.
On the opposite
On
end
the
of it,
opposite
right?
end,
Like
yes.
I even earlier before we started
Yeah.
taping, I'm pulling up my shirt
Yeah.
and covering up, and it's
Right.
like I think it brings its own issues also.
Yep, it does. I'll never forget the day my grandma, she's the sweetest, she took all of us girls out to buy our first professional suit when we graduated college for our first interview. And so grandma's trying to get me to buy this button-up shirt. And I was like, Grandma, I can't wear a button-up shirt. The button doesn't stay buttoned. That's not professional.
Yeah.
And grandma's like, what do you mean the button doesn't stay buttoned? I'm like, it's not happening. Like there's, but
Yeah.
so it's a different insecurity. It's a different way to clothes shop. It's all around different. And so I think on both ends it happens, and just to love yourself for where you're
Yeah,
at.
you can't change it naturally. You have to do something cosmetically.
Yeah.
And that poses its risk too.
Yeah.
And
men-
not that I'm not for that or that I'm
Yeah.
against it. I mean, I think it's to each its own.
And I think men have their own preferences. So
That's right. That's right.
who are we to say that
Yeah.
one is better than the other?
Or women, if
Yeah,
you
right.
have a significant other, that's a
Absolutely.
female.
Yep.
Okay, so weight. This is one that we've talked about doing a podcast on. Actually, a few different times.
Yeah.
Like, weight does have an insecurity component to it.
Absolutely.
Um,
And we know that because there are all kinds of fads out there.
there are.
And I shouldn't say fads. There are all kinds of lifestyles out there, whether it be you're a Weight Watchers person,
Keto.
or you're a keto person, or you're drinking
30-day
a shake.
30-day challenge.
Yeah,
the
the
life
whole life
challenge.
There's all kinds of things out
beach
there.
body.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay. We are just always trying to figure out which one is right for us. And I think that's what a lot of people are also trying to do. So, but yeah, weight definitely is something that causes
I
insecurities.
think this would be another podcast, but I think sometimes view that if I do these things, I'm going to lose weight, when really, if you understand the scientific method behind them,
Right.
they're not all intended to lose weight. Some
Right.
of them are to reduce inflammation. Some of them are to help with cholesterol, metabolism, whatever
Right.
it might be. So
Right.
you have to know your intent of why you're doing what you're doing to get the results that you want.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
but weight for sure. And I think people sometimes it's the model and the image to be thin, right? I mean, that's what we see on TV. That's what's
Yeah.
all over media. That's what our models, when you open up any magazine that sells lingerie or sells clothing, majority of the time, they are fit women, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and
they are.
attractive.
Yeah, they are. I think this one leads right into another one of, I would say, my insecurities, and probably an insecurity of many women, is what you eat in front of other people, right? Like when you go to a restaurant, do you quickly flip to the salad menu, or are you a, burger and fries kind of order? Or when you're at a potluck, do you go back for a second plate, or do you get 2 cookies or a brownie at all, or a pop, or because I'm always worried about, well, what are they going to think about what I'm eating, like,
Yeah.
And I actually had somebody comment one time about what I was eating, and it just really has left me always hyper aware of what I'm eating in front of people. That's not to say when I don't go home, I don't have a couple cupcakes or a few
Do you know what they
cookies.
call that?
No, give it to me.
Well, that's binging.
Oh,
if
well,
you're going
yeah.
home and-
No, I'm only having a
But,
couple. But I
yeah.
just think it's just something that people are aware of, what
Right.
they eat in front of other
And
people.
I think it depends upon who my audience is. Like, if I'm at a more if I care about impressing the other person on the other side, and I don't know if impressing is even the right word, because I don't know that I have to impress anybody, but if I'm worried about trying to have this level of conversation and there's a pizza in front of me that I could probably mow down the whole thing,
Right.
I'm probably going to be afraid it's going to get in my teeth.
Right.
So my insecurity isn't necessarily about what I'm eating. It's how is it going to be around my mouth and down my shirt and my
spaghetti or like cheese soup or something.
And how
like
am I going to have a conversation with this person?
Right.
I don't even know if I could go back to the dating scene and go out to eat in a public restaurant, because I like to eat and I like flavorful food, and so it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that you may or may not be insecure about, depending on who you're around, too.
Yeah. Yes.
So the last thing that came up in our research around insecurities, and it really is quite high in some of the polls that we've seen numbers on, is this idea of intelligence and career goals in that realm of someone's life, which I found a little bit interesting because, I don't know, I just didn't think that would be on the top of people's insecurities, but it is. What are your thoughts?
I think the insecurity, too, comes back to where am I going to be?
Yeah.
What am I doing? And so, when we were talking about this podcast before we did it, one of the things I had wondered about was, is this really a generational difference kind of conversation? Because we know that the baby boomers of the world had a lifetime job, right? Not even a career, but a lifetime job because they had to provide. I think we have become so a society of looking for that internal fulfillment that if I'm not fulfilled in my job, like daily, then it's time for me to move on and find something else. And I think the entrepreneurs of the world, that's what they do, right? And I was listening to a podcast the other day that talked about the percent of businesses that make it versus small businesses that make it versus don't in the first so many years. And it was such a small, low number. I thought, gosh, I hope I never have the urge to open a really tiny business because the statistics say you're not going to succeed. I mean, even with the vision and the dream and all that, if you can't define your why and sell your why behind it, then I think it was Simon Sinek it was in his book, and then kind of summed it up too in the Culture Code when they were talking about how many hundreds of restaurants that open up every year in New York City, how many of them make it, and it was dismal. I mean, honestly, so I wonder if that instant gratification plays a part in the career world. Now, the intelligence part, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I wonder if we're in such a cutthroat world where you're looked upon, or maybe it's a perception that if you're intelligent, you make more money, or that you have more friends, or that you got a mosquito. I don't really know. I wonder if it's like where we're always trying to be above or better than the next person. And so if I'm intelligent and I can speak intelligently, then I can be successful.
Well, we'll go one step further. I was reading a book, and the book talked about, actually it was Girl Wash Your Face.
Okay.
And it talked about how, I might get the quote somewhat wrong, but get the gist of it, that when she was away on a business trip and her husband had to be in the lineup to pick up the kids after school, people would ask about where she was at. And I think you and I both work full-time. Outside the home, I should say, because lots of people work full-time in the home, but we work full-time out of the home, and we travel. And we have a career that is probably demanding at times, and it's not always 8 to 4:30. And I think sometimes people perceive that as you're not a present mom.
Right.
So and this kind of goes into the last, do you judge much?
Right.
But I think ultimately when we talk about our insecurities, I feel pretty solid in my capability of being able to parent and travel and work. But I do think when people question and ask enough, there are times that you start to just step back and go, am I losing out on my kid's life? And I still think 99% of the time I would say, no, I think I'm teaching my kids a lot of value about co-parenting and about lots of other things that my kids learn from watching me have a career. So
yeah. I just think it's all perception. For your perception is your reality. So how you perceive your, things around you. And ultimately, I would say all these insecurities lead back to our fear of being judged. Otherwise, I'm not sure why we would have insecurities. I think about the things that I described as my insecurities. They boil back down to a fear of being judged by those around me and a fear of not belonging.
Yeah, that's so true.
So
when you're insecure, the insecurity typically does come because of maybe something somebody said or
yeah,
the way you're allowing somebody to make you feel,
right.
you know?
Which goes back to the way we started the podcast by saying insecurities are natural, and we all have them in different areas of our life, and at different times in our life they might be different as well. But that to not let those insecurities define our day-to-day and to overcome those fears of judgment by, what are you laughing
I'm
at?
sorry, that's my mom.
Oh my goodness, hi Mom.
Okay, keep going.
No,
Sorry,
I'm
my
good.
mom's
I think
riding her bike
that's
right now,
it right there.
staring at us, probably trying to see how we do this podcast thing, but she's wearing
And if she was watching real close, she'd see.
She's wearing a backpack, and she keeps turning, looking at us, and now she's coming down the street. So anyhow, enough
anyway,
of the podcast. Yep,
all right.
Enough of this.
So don't let your insecurities define you.
Yes, or your mom watching you do a podcast make you feel insecure at that very moment. So anyhow.
We're glad you're here.
Yeah, cutting through this crazy life.
Head on over to iTunes.
Yep, Stitcher, Google Play.
Anywhere you listen to us or watch us. Give us a rating review. And until next time.
Love your simple soul.
Thank you for listening in. Head on over to iTunes or Google Play to give Simple Soul a rating and review. Show notes and resources can be found on Facebook, Twitter, and our blog. Feel free to comment and share your thoughts. Also, like Simple Soul on Facebook and follow on Twitter and become part of their tribe. Love your simple soul.